Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Jacob. Welcome back to the Data Room episode 2. Today I'm joined by an awesome guest from the Rice Startup Career Fair. I basically went around to that fair asking all the vendors there if they would be interested in coming on, and Somiah so kindly agreed. He's our second guest overall, so I'm super excited to have him here today. We're going to jump right into it. Somiah, how about you give the viewers just a little bit of information about your background?
Hey there everybody, as Jacob already mentioned, my name is Somiah Palekanda. I'm an electrical engineer and I'm currently working for a startup company called Sensitech. So basically, as I mentioned, I am an electrical engineer and I found this passion growing up, and in high school it kind of hit. Till then I really didn't know what I wanted to become. I was kind of leaning towards a footballer, which is a very, very unrealistic dream. So my parents just pulled me back down from space back onto Earth and said, hey, you got to go into something more concrete, something that, can land you a better job, a more reliable job. And so electrical engineer is what we came up to because of the market.
Cool. Awesome. I'm super excited to have you on today. My first question for you is, why did you agree to come on this podcast?
So I was actually very curious about what you had to offer as a podcast, because obviously I've been listening to a lot of podcasts growing up. I listened to some funny ones, some news podcasts, some football news podcasts, which really piqued my interest. And I thought to myself, hey, can I go on there and do the same thing that these people are doing? I mean, it looks like fun, and so it became a bucket list thing, and I'm glad I'm able to tick that off right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So my first kind of real question to get into things is, what's been on your mind recently?
Honestly, so I'm a guy who's lived in a lot of countries. I'm not an American, and so the main thing that's been on my mind is trying to find a stable job that could keep me in the country. And I'm currently on an OPT visa. I'm currently on an OPT under an F1 visa, and so Sensitech has been so kind enough to keep me on, so I'm really grateful for that. So on my mind is just like, what are the next steps of my career? What can I do next? How can I stay in the country? That's really it.
Cool. And you keep mentioning Sensitech. How about we just kind of give the viewers a brief introduction to Sensitech and your role there and how you got into that position?
Sure. So Sensitech is in the concrete industry in terms of monitoring concrete as it's being poured. So as the name would suggest, they do develop sensors for this, which do measure the temperature and the resistivity of the concrete. And my role within the company is not a singular one. I do, in addition to doing the electrical engineering side of things and the manufacturing side of things, I also do things like go to career fairs and recruit, where I met Jacob. So.
Awesome. So Sensitech is a startup, and one of the things that I keep hearing about startups is a reason it appeals to a certain group of people is that you get to wear different hats. You get to be, some days you're doing electrical engineering, some days you're at the career fair. Can you just talk a little bit more about how is the day-to-day variety at your particular startup, and is that something that really appeals to you?
Honestly, yeah, it does appeal to me because the day-to-day is exactly how you think it would be. I do wear a lot of different hats in this company. I would be working on manufacturing a bit, and then randomly I get a call from the CEO saying, hey, I want you to adjust this BOM sheet for me to source new components for this new board that we're developing. Hey, I want you to take a look at this the circuitry within this board. I want you to see what's wrong with it. Or hey, in like a couple weeks ago's case, hey, I need you to go to Rice for me to go do this, to go find some potential recruits in this career fair. So yeah, wow. I mean, I do a lot of different things, and it's all fun. It keeps it interesting, and I really appreciate that because I'm never bored.
Awesome. And with that, being at a startup, being kind of the real representative of electrical engineering and that skill set within your startup, how do you go about learning about new things? Like when you encounter something that you don't know the answer to, maybe no one in your company does either, how do you go about finding those answers?
So the thing about all that is, as you said, nobody in the company would know about it, and so they just rely on me, and they trust whatever I say to be correct, because that is my job. My job is to find things out and get it correct. Mm-hmm. And so I've been blessed with the ability to fail. I've been blessed with the ability to come up short and look my coworkers in the eye and say, hey, I couldn't really figure this out. And then all they do is say, hey, can you try to fix it, or do we have to outsource this? Or hey, can you do you know any contacts who can help you with it? So I really am happy that I've basically been built up by this company to be able to fail and then come back stronger.
Cool. So kind of going off of that, what would you say is like your single biggest failure, and how has it had a positive impact on you? Because one of the things that they really preach in the Rice entrepreneurship classes is this idea of failing upwards and kind of pivoting from your failures and turning them into successes. So when is a time you failed and learned from it and then turn that into a success?
You know, it's kind of funny because my singular biggest failure isn't even to do with like electrical engineering or anything to do with the company or anything like that. It's to do with the sports side of my life. So is it okay if I go into that?
Absolutely.
Side? Yeah. So when I was younger, I still am an avid football player, but when I was younger, I was part of the school team. And so we were doing an inter-school tournament, and they put a heavy responsibility on me to be like the captain of one of the half of the team. So we had our team split into two. And nobody thought our half of the team could make it far or could do anything really, but we managed to take our team to the semifinals of the tournament and ended up matching up with our A team. So we were the B team. We managed to match up with the A team and to go into the finals if we win. And we had it at a stalemate for the game, and then took the penalties and. I knew I wasn't going to score. I didn't want to kick at all, so I didn't. I was too scared. I was straight up too scared to approach the ball and take a penalty kick. So I let my teammates handle that pressure, and they all scored. Every one of them did a fantastic job. They all scored, but so did the other team. Unfortunately, every single one of them did as well. So then then it gets to you, you have to go up to kick because you're running out of players. So I was forced up, knowing I wasn't going to score, and I didn't put my heart into it, and I missed. And it wasn't even like a good miss. It was just like a plain miss. It was bad. And from there, I realized that, if I maybe went up with a better attitude or, wasn't scared, I might have scored, and who knows what could have happened. So since then on, I'm really like trying not to be scared of things and trying to overcome a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. So what are some of those obstacles that you have overcome by not being scared and, having a more positive attitude?
It's mostly to do with confrontation. Like, if something's this does apply to the company. So like, if something's going wrong with what we're doing, I don't mind stopping everything and being like, hey, this doesn't look right. I think we need to kind of reassess where we're going with things. And before, if I approached that with the same mentality I did before, it wouldn't have been as successful. Like, I might not have got my point across. The company might have, accidentally sold something that wasn't up to par, so I'm pretty glad that I missed that penalty.
Cool. So when you're kind of in that day-to-day interaction and you feel like you need to step in and you need that confidence, where does that confidence for you come from? And real quick, before you answer that, I want to share with me. I was a big tennis player growing up, and I had a tennis coach. He would always tell me, like, confidence comes from hitting the same shot 1,000 times. And it's just, for him, confidence is all about having the repetitions. Is that something that you found is true for you, or does your confidence come from somewhere else?
So, while that is true, and I do agree with him, that is a great saying. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's another saying that's very similar to that. That's like, I forgot who it was, a famous martial artist said, I do not fear the man that practices 1,000 kicks one time. I fear the man that practices one kick 1,000 times.
Right.
So I really do see where your coach was coming from with that. But for me, it's more the fear of regretting. Mm. So if I want to do something and I'm not confident enough at the time, I will think ahead and be like, will I look back on this and say, hey, I really regret not doing that. And so that's where my confidence comes from. It's not good confidence, it's still not perfect, but getting there, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, for sure. So with your confidence, with your current position, obviously you've achieved quite a bit at a young age. What next goals are you currently pursuing right now?
So I want to go into higher studies. I want to do more than what I've already done. I've got my bachelor's and now I want to kind of go into my master's, but not yet. I do want the work experience beforehand, but after this I do want to move in to do my master's sometime and, challenge myself and see how far I can go with that.
Cool. What is it about the Masters that really appeals to you? Is it the chance to just become a more knowledgeable electrical engineer? Is it more about advancing your career? What do you kind of see as your end goal with that?
It's the latter. I think it's, in my opinion, what I want to go for is more towards the advancement of career, because I don't intend to do it necessarily in electrical engineering. I also am open to doing more to the business side, so an MBA, but it just depends on how I'm going, how my life is going, like where I'm headed, and then I'll see where I'm headed, and then I'll kind of go into what would be more suitable for my trajectory.
Cool. So with going off of what you just said about how you're going to take some time, see where things are headed, what is your kind of general approach towards life? Like, how do you know what your core priorities are? How do you know what kind of things are less important?
So for that, I feel like I listen to my conscience a lot. So if I feel like I have too many things on my plate, I will organize everything strategically, and I'll see, hey, what deserves more of my time and what doesn't. And so that's how I will kind of, get everything done in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and to go a bit deeper, like, how do you know what things deserve your time more? Do you kind of, like, for me, for example, like, when I am kind of unsure of, like, what my next big priority is, I really try to look at things from a perspective of what are my long-term goals and what in the current moment can help me reach those long-term goals. Like, that's why I'm on this podcast right now. Like, if my long-term goal is to become the best entrepreneur possible, I want to be talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs, a bunch of people who work in startups, a bunch of people who have achieved success. And so that's what really guided me to start this podcast. Like, what kind of what guiding principles or kind of what do you use to develop that hierarchy of priorities?
Honestly, I wish I could tell you, man. It's kind of a natural thing for me. Like, I'll just know what I have to do, what the right stages are, what the right steps are. I'll just know, and if I do mess up, then I'll know that I have the friends around me and the family around me to correct me and kind of put me back on track. But I don't have any principles that I adhere to. I kind of just have feelings to what I want to follow. I wish I could give you a better answer than that, man. But
yeah, but so a big part of it you would say is your network.
Yeah, I'd say my network is a massive influence on where I'm headed, what I want to do. So I always try to keep good people around me.
Yeah. So what specific individuals, maybe just name a few, what specific individuals, maybe they're currently part of your network, maybe they were for a time, what are a few specific individuals that had a big impact on you, who you are today, and some of your current successes?
So I've grown up in a lot of countries. I started in England when I was really young, moved to Qatar, moved to Indonesia after Qatar, and then to India for a bit, and then back to Qatar, and then here for university. So I wish I could list off all the people that have had an influence on me, but I've always been sure to have a best friend in each of those countries, and every single one of them has put me on a path. Like, my best friend from the first time I was in Qatar kind of got me more social with people, and it was really nice of them to do that. My best friend from Indonesia got me into sports. He showed me football, and I started playing it way more often. My best friend from India, he kind of helped me advance football. As a collective, me, him, and a group of friends, we hung out more. I got way more social than I normally am. And then I went back to Qatar to find new friends, not the same friends as before. There were more people to meet, and there I learned a lot about how we can go out together, enjoy my free time, how to balance my studying with my friends. And then coming to Houston, I mean, I've made some of the best friends I could ever have with the same humor that I have, and so everything kind of landed amazing for me. So
yeah,
I'm really
that's
grateful
awesome.
for that.
That's awesome. I would agree with that. Like, for me, being in college, I think I've met some really amazing people that have already played a role in impacting who I am.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the awesome things about college is you really get to experience a lot of other exceptional people on a day-to-day basis. And I definitely agree that the people that you're around have a big influence on your life. Like, I have a younger sister, and before she went to college, my kind of one piece of advice that I gave her is the 5 people that you spend the most time with is a reflection of who you are. And I don't know where that came from. I've seen it all over the place, but ever since I first encountered that idea, it's really stuck with me because I can look back on my time in middle school and high school and think about who was I spending the most time with, and I think those people all had a really positive impact on me, and I think if I chose a different 5 to spend that time with, I think I could have ended up a completely different person. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's really good. That's good advice to your sister as well.
Yeah, do you have any siblings?
No, I don't. I'm an only child.
Okay, if you had a younger sibling, what would be your piece of advice for them?
To live with no regrets. Do everything you want to do and enjoy yourself. That's the most important thing about life. But also that goes without saying, you got to put the work in. You know, this is just on the side. Also have a really good work-life balance. I guess I have a lot to say to my younger sibling. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, and we're gonna talk more about advice later on, so you don't have to throw that on now. So let's dive into more like kind of on the habit side. What are some habits that you've developed over time that have led to some of your current success and that you're gonna keep with you as you pursue future endeavors?
Honestly, the habits that have led to my current success are not necessarily good habits if you look at it from a certain light, because I've got into wanting to complete all my work the night before an assignment is due, rather than like do it the next day. I'd rather just do it the night before and then just sleep in, which is frowned upon by my parents. But me and my friends were all up at like 1 a.m. doing assignments, doing labs, stuff like that, and I feel like that's the main thing that has kept me going. That has like helped me succeed in a lot of classes, especially. Another thing that contributes to success, this is on the sports side of things, is just having a determination to want to win, being extremely competitive.
Yeah.
And actually, come to think of it, it's not necessarily just with sports, it's also with my friends for even the stupidest things. We used to go to the cafeteria every day, and we used to challenge each other to see who can eat more plates of food.
Oh my god.
I came out on top each time.
Nice.
But yeah.
Cool. Is there any other kind of either mindsets that you hold close to yourself, like you said, like hard work, or is there any other kind of habits that you do on a daily basis? Like, for example, for me, one of the habits I've been making a point to do this semester is to read more. Like, in high school, I was a big reader, and once I got to college, I didn't really read at all. And when I sat down to read a book for a class, I realized, like, I've lost some of my skills. Like, I'm not able to read as quickly, I'm not as sharp. And so with that, I've been reading some financial newsletters that I have. They come to my email inbox in the morning, then one comes in like the afternoon, and then I have a book that I'll be reading in the evening, and it just kind of keeps me sharp through the day, and also just gives me some time to kind of get away from the work, learn about what's going on in the world. So that's like a habit that I've adopted. Do you have anything like that?
Honestly, if I'm gonna to give a similar answer to you, mine is more typing. Because I've always been a slow typer, and this is something that my dad has tried to correct for a while, and only now that I've like got my own computer, I'm kind of more into like, hey, I can type faster than this. I've seen my friends all type super fast, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I want to do that. So that's an answer that's more geared to yours. Yeah. But I would also say, nah, never mind. Just typing really. I mean. Actually, no, wait, yeah. Getting assignments done as soon as I get them is a big habit. Okay. So I'd like to knock stuff out of the way as soon as, it hits my table. So, like, sometimes in class, me and my friends would finish our homeworks. So, like, they'd give us the homework midway through class, and we'd try to finish, like, at least half of it by the end of class. So, it would just reduce our workload for later, and I really felt like that was a key skill.
It kind of shifts your entire workflow, like, to the beginning, and it leaves a lot of time on the back end for things. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I sometimes do that. I wouldn't say I do that for every assignment, but definitely that was big in high school for me. Like you mentioned, doing homework in class. Like a lot of my classes, like when you walk in, you pick up your homework for the day, and then I would just try to do it the whole time during class. So I can definitely relate to that.
Also, the fact that you're doing it like while the teacher's explaining the concepts really do help you understand the concepts instead of just listening and then later on trying to recollect what happened.
Yeah.
Because, be honest with me, how often have you gone through your notes from class?
I would say fairly often, honestly.
Fairly often?
I mean, I'm a pretty good note taker, I would have to say. Like, I do, I try to take nice notes. I think I try to make a point to have good handwriting, good spacing, keep everything clean and organized. And the reason actually is I know one of my good friends, like one day I came to him with a question about a class that he took a long time ago, and he just pulled out like the most beautiful note sheet like from years ago of that class, and that showed, and like this is someone I look up to. I respect his intellect for sure. He's a great student, and it just kind of showed me that when you keep everything organized, it's almost like what I'm doing with the podcast. It's like you're building a database for yourself to go back on, and that's kind of what I'm doing with the podcast. Is I'm trying to create a database, a playbook for myself, but also anyone else out there who's interested in getting into startups, being an entrepreneur, and just really being successful at all. Like I think there's some kind of commonalities, some things that a lot of successful people do, and I've just found that a lot of people that I respect intellectually, they have good notes. So that's something I've been working on.
You're a better man than me, bro. Like for note taking, I'm probably the worst person. My friends will attest to that. But yeah, I mean, I've tried to organize myself in different ways though.
Yeah.
So I just not with notes, but I'm really bad with notes.
What are some other ways that you organize yourself? Do you have a calendar?
I do. It's a Google Calendar, and I've only started doing it because my friends have been posting about theirs. So I kind of like went like, oh yeah, let me just try it. But till then, I was using, you know, the notepad app on your phone. I see it on your laptop. I see it's open.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I used to do to write deadlines down, and you know, just highlight them and delete them off when I'm done with them. But I feel like the Google Calendar is much better for that. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I also use the sticky notes as well, but I also use Google Calendar. I think the sticky notes is where I kind of organize my day. Each morning I'll try to write out my like priorities and then maybe the timing of when those things are going to occur. But I think the calendar is a really good way to kind of organize your deadlines and kind of look ahead. Like if you see a test coming up next week, maybe start studying, you know, those kind of things. But like you said, like I really like the sticky note because you can kind of highlight it, knock it off the list. It's a good feeling when you're kind of knocking things off.
Yep, kind of like deleting those tabs when you're done with an exam.
Exactly. Absolutely. So let's kind of shift the conversation a little bit. You know, what's on your mind when you're going to sleep, and like what's on your mind first thing when you wake up?
So when I go to sleep, I'm normally checking the news. I just want to go to sleep knowing what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's not just necessarily world news. I'll start with world news, but then I'll go to more like my interests, so football news. I'll check like transfer rumor stuff like that, and then after that I'll be like, all right, I'm good. Let me sleep. When I get up in the morning, it's more like I really want to stay in bed. I really want to sleep, but like at the same time, my body's like, hey, you know, if you start working now, you can go later and just play football or go outside, just do something like that. So yeah,
So you're. The kind of the way you get out of bed is kind of just thinking about all the good things that are going to be happening throughout the day.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me just share something that's worked really well for me. Is this semester I started going to the gym in the morning. So it opens at 6 a.m. So I get up at 5:45. My roommate and we have the alarm, and I saw a video of Steve Harvey where he was talking about how every morning, one of his friends or mentors would call him like super early, like 5:30 a.m. something, every morning, like, hey Steve, how's it going? Like, it's gonna be a great day today, like go get him. And at first, like Steve Harvey would just be like, oh yeah, okay, like whatever, man, like I'm tired, like it's early, you know. But then one day he just is like, all right, I'm gonna try to match his energy. So the guy like calls him on the phone, and then Steve picks it up. Oh yeah, let's go get him. It's gonna be a great day, you know, just matching that exciting energy. So that's something I really try to do every single morning. Like from the moment I hear the alarm go off, I just think like, oh, let's go get him. It's a bench day, boys. Like my roommate and I kind of try to hype each other up.
You know, that's fair.
And you know, it's not for everyone, of course. Like it is really early in the morning, and I have to make some sacrifices in the evening prior to that.
Yeah.
For sure. But for me personally, I think it's been a really great way to start the day. Like from the moment you get out of, or like your eyes open, you hear the alarm, you know, you have something to look forward to right away.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's a sense of accomplishment to do something that early in the morning. That's for me. It's more on a minuscule scale because like I got the same advice, and it was my dad who gave me that advice, and it was more like, hey, you know, when you wake up in the morning, make your bed. Because that's like the smallest task you could do that'll give you a sense of accomplishment, and that'll start your day off right. So every day I always make my bed, I always make my room clean, I always make sure that everything is in perfect condition, and I get teased a lot for it from my friends. They all say, hey, his room is way too clean.
No, that's a good thing for sure.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. So you mentioned your parents quite a bit throughout this podcast. So I'm going to share a piece of advice from my dad, and then I want to hear some advice that's come from your parents. So one of the things that my dad said, my dad he's an awesome, really wise, very smart person. He works at NASA. But one of the advices that piece of advice that he always tells me that sticks with me, especially as I was growing up and learning, is he would always say, like, if you're being careless, it's not an accident. And I think, like, I would always be very careless. Like, I was a young, very high energy kid, I'd be breaking things, doing things. But that kind of mindset of, like, if you're being careless, it's not an accident, I think it's made me a much more careful person. Like, just going throughout life, just day to day, everything, like, I'm just trying to think about everything I'm doing and make sure that I'm not being careless. I think it's been really positive for me. So is there any advice like that your parents have told you that's kind of stuck with you?
The main thing is always be over-prepared. So, like, I'll give you an example of this. This isn't when it started, but this is more like a result of him always, my dad always telling me this. But I was going to travel from here back to India to go finish up my F1 visa applications and everything and get my actual visa for school. And so I had the documents necessary and more, and way more documents than I needed. So I ended up at the embassy in Mumbai. I had all the stuff I needed, and I just walked through and I saw kids in front of me getting rejected. I saw people saying, hey, you don't have the right documents. Hey, I heard a lot of people, like, complaining on the way out. And so I was in line getting nervous well, I didn't need to be nervous at all.
Mm-hmm.
I just walked up there. I gave them the documents. They saw the giant binder that I placed in front of them, and they were like, oh, yeah, we just need this one document. I'm like, oh, okay. So I had, like, an abundance of, like, 20 more documents that I didn't even need to fill out, which were with me just in case anything happened. So I'm grateful for that, because if anything did happen,
right,
I'd have been in trouble. I didn't have family there. I don't have anybody there in that particular city, so I would have been in big trouble. So it's good that worked out. But I always keep that in mind.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that advice. I was in Boy Scouts, and, like, they always say be prepared. So I can definitely relate to that. I think it's always better to be over prepared than under prepared. And I think when you are prepared, it's not only like you've brought the right equipment or the right things with you, but it's also that you've kind of thought through some of the different possibilities. Like, if it's a podcast, for example, being prepared is like thinking about how would I potentially respond based on how they respond, just kind of thinking through different scenarios, I think can really help people in a multitude of situations.
Yeah, especially like you said with the podcast, like, how do I keep a conversation flowing? And so far it's been really good, man.
Awesome. I appreciate it. So that kind of leads us into our next question, I guess, which is, how have you changed the most over the last 5 years?
Well, obviously I graduated, so there's that. I became an electrical engineer, but I would say what shifted most was my outlook on, on friends and on, like, hanging out and work and school life balance and work life balance now. But that's all shifted a lot because I've been busy over the last couple of years, as you know, as you're being busy, you're getting busy as well. So, like, just having this experience of, living on my own, making my own food, kind of managing my time so I know when to put work into study, when to actually go to work, and when to relax. Because for my last semester, I was working as a TA. I was working with Sensitech, and I was finishing a full course load to graduate. Right. So that last semester kind of pushed me to know how to manage my time. And I feel like that's my biggest asset now. It wasn't before, but now it's definitely one of my biggest assets is I know how to, like, strategize what I'm doing when. Yeah, that's my biggest.
That's awesome. You've also mentioned kind of earlier in the podcast, you mentioned how a lot of your friends had kind of improved who you are. They pushed you to be more social. Specifically on the social skills front, like, what social skills have you really become adept at and feel like more comfortable in social situations because of?
I feel like I'm way more outgoing now. I've learned how to drink. So that's one thing. So like now I'm more sociable, like in an environment where because let me set the stage for you. I was like a year ago or something. I was out with not my friends, but my dad's friends as well. Well, they're also my friends, really. But I was out with them, and they were offering me a drink, and they were like, hey, they were all not hammered, but they were all kind of, in a sociable mood, talking and everything. It's a party at a friend's house, and so I was just the only one there who was completely sober and awkward, and just standing in the corner. And I'm like, yeah, this is not a good time. Flash forward a year later, I like going to parties with my dad's friends, and I like hanging out with all sorts of different friend groups because I'm able to participate in the same activities as them, and that way I'm able to not be bored, and I'm able to enjoy myself with them, and it doesn't look like I'm bored in front of them as well, so they invite me back. So yeah.
Awesome. So you kind of learned how to integrate better with the vibe, fit the mood, and it seems like you have no issue talking to people, even if they might be older than you, like if they're your dad's friends. Like, yeah. I think that's a really good skill to have, being able to interact with those people. And I'm sure you've developed that a lot at work.
Oh yeah.
As well.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So we're almost out of time. I'm gonna ask just a few more questions. My first of those, there's 3 more questions coming up. So the first one of those is there any question that you expected me to ask that I haven't, and what would your answer to that be?
Honestly, no. I think you kind of covered all the bases. Coming here, I literally expected every single question that you just asked me, because it all seemed very relevant to what you wanted me on the podcast for. So I'd say I don't. There's nothing
awesome.
That.
Cool. Then my second to the last question is, what advice would you have for me personally? We've been chatting a bunch. We talked at the startup fair. I kind of explained a little bit about myself. Just to give you a brief, quick thing about me is I'm a sophomore undergrad at Rice. Remember that, majoring in business. Mm-hmm. And my ultimate goal is I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to start my own company. I want to work in startups. I want to help build startups. What advice would you have for me?
Rome wasn't built in a day, Like right now, you're just starting off. You're starting off pretty small. You have a small guest that, I'm just here to talk about my own mentality and stuff. But soon you're gonna grow, dude. I've seen your drive. I've seen the effort you've been putting yourself through to kind of set everything up. I've seen I've seen everything going on behind the scenes, and I know that you're gonna go far with it if you just keep your mind to it and stick with it. That's my advice. Just
awesome.
Stick with it.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate it a lot. And then my last question. So that was selfish advice for me. Now just general advice to the viewers who may be watching. What would you have to say?
I know for a fact, viewers, that Jacob here is going to get more people on this podcast. And I've met some potential people that he could get on this podcast at the career fair. And they're all really interesting people. So inspiration comes from the most unlikely places. So please do keep watching and see what you find. You might get some great advice from people. You might see new people. So that's my advice to the viewers.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Keeping the viewers around is always good. Like you said, there were some really awesome people that I got to meet at the startup fair, and it's super exciting that you were the first, but there are going to be more in the coming days. So awesome, Somiah. It's been an absolute pleasure. I learned a lot from your mindset, a lot about you, and I really appreciate the insight. I think the viewers will as well. So with that, thank you so much, and that concludes the second episode of the Data Room.